All right, let's get back to the Tigers. We had a bit of a false start before. We had to get to Nathan Cleary, but we dipped our toes in. But there's a bit more to these hoops, and you've been all over it all day. Tallyn Silva walking out mid-season, and then there's now a few stories about what's happening at the club at the moment. It is a bit of a concern, isn't it?
Look, it is a concern based on the fact that I think from an outside point of view, some people look at the Tigers and they think, well, the coaches changed, the administration has changed, which needed to happen and was hugely significant. But off the back of 6 straight losses, a 64-0 thumping by the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park, it does feel like it's the same theme and just a little bit of a different day. Now, last week on the show, I said that the Holman Barnes group were involved in Lachlan Galvin's exit. That's not the case. Richo made that decision and the West Tigers board made that decision, the same way that Benji made the decision around Tallyn Silva and letting Tallyn go. And I think he's done that because there's a clique at the West Tigers, and it happens at all clubs, as you blokes know.
A clique what, with the players?
With the players and Benji, with the senior players and Benji. And Benji needs buy-in from his leaders, and they lack leaders at West Tigers. Appy is one leader, Jerome is the other leader. Aside from
Is that it? Is that the senior?
Well, aside from that, you try and pick a captain out of the current West Tigers squad, and I think you'd struggle. So that was why Benji went with, I've got to keep Appy. I need to win now. I don't need to win by the time Tallyn's ready at the end of 2026. I need to win tomorrow, right? So that's why he's backed him in there. But the other factor is Jerome. He's got to keep Jerome happy too, because Jerome's got that get-out clause that he can activate as of midway through next season, and it can get him out the following year. So I get what Benji's trying to do.
Yeah, can I ask you guys a question? I don't go into dressing rooms, but do most coaches have that relationship with senior players as well?
Of course.
Yeah, most other clubs.
All the great. Well, you look at the Raiders and Ricky Stewart and the relationship he's got with Joe Tarpanay and Josh Papali'i at the moment. You can go back to when Cameron Smith played at the Melbourne Storm and the relationship that he's got with Craig Bellamy. Go to Penrith. It's the same there. Nathan and Isaiah Yeo with, of course. To me, that seems natural. But I think where it has caused some rumblings is some of the younger players, and we've seen Galvin exit a complete circus, right? I think some of the younger players do feel as though there might be some double standards.
You're not happy about or agree with the fact that they let Tallyn Silva go, and I tend to agree. And there's a lot that also agree. Why do you think they shouldn't have let him go?
Well, it's funny the talk around the senior players this year, because last year it was the senior players. I thought Benji was too cuddly with the rookie players. And he fell out with John Bateman and David Clemmer and some of those senior players, right? And because of some perceived treatment that he was giving the likes of Galvin and some of the younger players. But the Tallyn Silva one, I think it's remarkable that we got to the point where a kid that wasn't angling to leave the club, wasn't agitating, was going about his business, wanted to be there and told the club as much, that they let him go 18 months early from his contract. I could have understood once they got to the end of seasons to cut him loose.
Was there no agitation at all? There had to be, surely.
There was nothing, Greg.
So they wanted to free up money. Is that what it's about?
I promise you, he's a local junior. He's a Campbelltown kid. He wanted to stay. He wanted to stay at the club.
I can't believe that.
But he did make it blatantly clear, and Richo went and sat with his parents, if you're going to re-sign Appy, then it's only fair that I do get the option to have a look around and possibly
He was happy to play second fiddle next year to Appy.
He was. Because I didn't think that.
And if they offered him a long-term deal and said, look, Appy's got 12 more months, he's going to be our hooker next year, he was quite happy to play off the bench next year. But in 2027, he wasn't happy to do that, right? So that was the conversation there. And they're a side struggling at the moment. That spine that they've put together this weekend is nowhere near full strength. And Benji's battling to save his coaching career if it gets to the point where they're, wooden spoon bound again. And he wasn't great last week, Tallyn, I get that, right? But he's an upgrade of some of the players that were there. And
Can I ask a West Tigers fan question? Is there another number 9 that's 17 or 18?
Yeah, they've got a good one.
Jared Haywood is a young guy who's in their system. He is. But there are big raps on him. He was the Australian schoolboys captain. That's part of the reasoning why they were happy to let Tallyn go. I've had other judges that I trust tell me that they think Tallyn's far more advanced to where he is right now.
Now, you spoke about Benji's relationship with the senior players. Is that getting the younger players off and they're looking elsewhere? Is that what's happening or not?
BA, let's call it out for what it is. Clearly it is. Because you've only got to go back to the Lachlan Galvin Schmozzle and the shambles to see that He did get the shits about that. He was the golden boy.
Is this a
12 months
generational thing,
earlier.
though? Is this a generational thing, or is this a problem for the West Tigers? Because this never used to happen. If you're a young guy, and I was talking to a few of the ex-Bulldogs players today about this situation, we couldn't comprehend it. If you were and you'd know it too, when you're a young kid coming into grade, you do what you're told. And you earn your stripes, especially at that age. And you do what the senior players tell you, and you do what the coach tells you, and eventually you earn the right to be in that position, to be a dominant, in whatever it is that you play. And when you earn that right, you can dictate terms. Now we've got young guys.
Don't forget, these are the kids that are coming through. They got ribbons for coming third.
They're dictating terms.
This is the modern world, Braith. It's not like it was when you won a premiership. I remember what it was like back at Belmore when
But we shouldn't allow
that was a hard edge.
How are we allowing this? If we allow this, it'll
maybe
keep
the
happening.
Tigers are putting the line in the sand. Go, well, hold on, no. You earn your stripe or just go.
It happens to the struggling clubs.
Yes.
They're vulnerable because when players get frustrated, like what happened with Lockie Galvin, he's a golden-haired boy, first year comes in, debuts at 18 straight out of high school, wins all the pre-season testing, forces his way into the side. Has a great season, but then in the background they go out and buy Jerome. And Benji's a huge part of that. And then when Jerome arrives, all of a sudden Lockie goes from being the shiniest toy at the West Tigers to now Jerome's the main man. And I think that was what created a big part of the friction, bro.
And to your point, Jerome should always have been the main man, coming with 4 premierships, New South Wales, Test football.
Can I just ask, as a young kid, that's who you want to play with?
Yeah.
I went to play in Brisbane because I played State of Origin and I played with Alan Langer. And I went there and it was Glenn Lazarus, right? And no matter what he told me he did. When I went to the Dragons, I sat on the bench for 3 years because I had Dave Barney or Scott Goulet and Brad Mackay in front of me. And that was the best education and apprenticeship that I could have done, right, to turn me into the player that I did. And everybody's going, I should be starting. And then when I got put back in reserve grade, I wasn't the big dog there because it was Wally Fulton-Smith. And other guys telling you, what's wrong with that system?
But if the clubs stay strong in these situations and they just say, if they all just say the players have got to stay, they sign a contract, they can't leave, and the NRL back to all the clubs, we won't have this. Because now it's got to a point.
Was different.
But now it's at a point, Hoops, where Tallyn sees Galvin sees someone else, they see something, and they're like, well, you know what? And the managers know that. So they go, okay, well, let's just say this or that, or we'll speak to them, we'll get agitated, we'll do this. And before you know it, like even the Tigers said Galvin's not leaving, he left within 3 weeks. Like it just happens.
Because it changed because of the agitation and the manipulation and the agent steamroll.
That's
the
what I
club
just said.
Turned it into bullying, right? As soon as you get the RLPA involved, bullying and lawyers.
Well, look at the bullying
See
now.
you
Like,
later.
that's laughable
It's
now.
all over.
You look back at that.
Well, it is laughable after what he put on social media the other day about
crazy.
talent.
It won't change. I think there was a club back in 95 or 96 it was, that made a kid sit out, and no other club and no other player wanted to jump ship. And that was through a time when there was 2 competitions and everybody was jumping ship. And as soon as they made a kid sit out, and that was me, no other player did it. Right? And that's what the clubs need to do. Sit there, and the game's got to protect them. And I'm talking about the game above and go, no, we are happy for that kid to sit out and give the clubs back a little bit of power.
The thing that surprises me, Braith, is when Richo went to Penrith, right? And I know it's 20 years ago, but when he got there, he could see that the local juniors were the future, similar to the way he outlined that pathway when he got into the West Tigers. Within 2 years, they'd won a premiership. Now, granted, then when he went to Souths, it was a little bit different. They had a litany of bigger, deeper issues, and it took a lot bigger to fix, a lot more time to fix. But ultimately, they got there and they smashed a 43-year title drought. It feels as though at the moment, he's decided he's going to give Benji the world. He's going to give Benji everything. He wants Benji to succeed. But what happens if Benji doesn't succeed?
We know what happens.
Yeah.
We know what happens. All right, now reports that Benji tackled Adam Doueihi at training and it turned into a fight.
This is your man. What's happened here?
Well, no, it's been doing the rounds, and Benji
What's
does.
doing the rounds?
This is so good.
Benji does oppose work,
Yeah.
right? He steps in and essentially, which I haven't seen coaches do, plays like a half and gets into an oppose work. And apparently, their suggestions are that Adam Doueihi and Benji Marshall, during one of those oppose sessions, got up and had a bit of a heated altercation. Whether that was a push and shove or verbal or anything else was exchanged, but it's what happened, apparently.
But you love that from your player,
And that's leaked from within.
Well, obviously, the only people that saw it were the 17, whatever, 30-odd players that were there and staff.
That's a bad scene. So, talking to a couple of the retired champion players and some who've coached as well earlier, and it's such a dangerous road that, because if Benji whacks Doueihi too hard, well, all of a sudden Benji's in the wrong and he's lost respect that way, or vice versa. If Adam Doueihi sits him on his ass, well, what does that do in terms of Benji's reputation in front of the group? I just think it's a big no-no. Coach, blokes putting the boots on. Coach is putting the boots on, right? I don't think Wayne or Bellyache.
No, do you know what?
Very different.
No, do you know
It's
what?
very different.
They got
He's
runs
younger.
on the board.
Yeah, but he's younger. He's just retired not that long ago. He still carves them up probably.
What happens if he puts a clinic on?
You know what?
He has. He's been
What
doing
happens if
it
he
for
puts a clinic on?
I'd pick him this week and a half.
Well, he would be, yes.
You know what?
He'd be a walk-up
he could
starter and a
play
half.
this
Yeah.
week.
He's been doing it for since he's been on the coaching staff. So this is not new. The fact that there was some sort of dust
Well, this
up,
incident shows that it's fraught with danger, though.
can be, yeah. It can be for two reasons. If he carves them up, what does that do for
Poor
you?
Tigers fans, honestly. I've got a headache right now listening to this.
I feel sorry
And
for them.
I can only imagine what they're going through. They've had,
Give them back my
and
membership.
they could see the light at the start of this year. They could see the light, and then the Galvin stuff, and now it's snowballed into this, and here we are. It's crazy.